The government has done a good balancing act, if I may say so, has been in a redistributive mode.
I think this is a very significant budget for the middle class.
Joining me on the show is Shubhada Rao, founder of Quant Eco Research, and also Suman Chowdhury as well, economist who's joining us here as well. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me.
Thank you.
In terms of your biggest takeaway, because for me the most important part today was the focus and the emphasis on jobs. Now I'm going to ask you about whether it's going to be enough or not is a different question, but the intent is clearly there.
This is addressed to Suman or me?
To you, Shubhada.
Okay. I think the government has done a good balancing act, if I may say so, has been in a redistributive mode, if I could add that. There seems to be some discomfort in terms of overeating in the capital markets. So therefore, the capital gains tax hikes have been imposed. But how have the proceeds been utilized? I would think if you look at the themes that the government had been highlighting right from interim budget and the post-election narrative, the focus was on formalization of employment, youth, skilling, rural development. All of this, to my mind, has been taken care of more than adequately by not just increasing the allocations towards rural, towards agri, towards other infrastructure, keeping headline capex intact, but all this within the fiscal consolidation theme of keeping the fiscal deficit well under control. So that is the reason I use the word very carefully, that of redistribution, in terms of highlighting higher expenditure on Manrega, for instance. It's higher than what was announced in interim budget. So there has been a focus on the key pillars that the government had been highlighting right through last 6 to 10 months in the run up to the budget.
Right. Suman, your first takeaways as far as the big numbers and the announcements made on the economy front?
I think this is a very significant budget for the middle class. If I want to put it all together, if I think Shubhada just alluded to the incentives being provided for employment generation across all the sectors, and particularly manufacturing sector. I think it's a huge thing, and hopefully this can be successfully implemented, because it can give jobs to, as the finance minister estimated, to more than 2 crore youths in the country. So surely that's a positive, and that's also something which can drive consumption over the long term, because as more people get employed and more people are having income, definitely will be positive to drive consumption. This is apart from the fact that some tax slabs have been tweaked under the new tax regime, which is going to lead to some kind of savings, can go up to 17,500, and that is likely to spur consumption to some extent. So, in my opinion, this is a pro-middle class, slightly pro-consumption budget. And also along with it, I think the messaging on fiscal consolidation is very significant. As you know, that they had put a number of 5.1% the fiscal deficit for 2024-25 in the interim budget. That finance minister has brought down by 20 basis points to 4.9%. I think it's very, it reflects the commitment towards fiscal consolidation. And also it has been said that there will be an effort to bring it down to below 4.5% next year, that is FY26. So I think that's good news for the bond market over the slightly longer term. And considering the fact that now you have India's bonds included in the global indices, that's likely to be pretty positive, for the bond markets.
Right. Shubda, in terms of, like someone was pointing out, there is some move to try and increase consumption, try and increase money in people's hand. At the same time, there is also, of course, the RBI's great effort to keep inflation under control and to go to that 4% level. So, how do you think this balancing act is going to work? Because obviously, when we're talking about the kind of growth rates we've seen, and now with more money coming in the hands of consumers, a boost to consumption, what's that balance going to look like?
Uh, Avni, what I like about this government's approach and right through COVID times till date, they have refrained from direct big bang incentives and impetus, which in the long run become unsustainable. Instead, what the government and the finance minister has emphasized on a more virtuous way of sustaining growth. It did that over the previous budgets. In the run up to this budget announcement, there was a wide expectation of huge impetus being directly given to consumption. Instead, what the government has, emphasized and focused on is more of virtuous way of enhancing consumption, as Suman alluded to earlier. Increasing formalization of employment, improving some bit of income in hand of the taxpayers, not in a very big bang manner, but in a small, incremental manner. But more importantly, creating a job environment which is more feasible, plausible, and it gives a flavor and tone of work in progress over the next 4 to 5 years towards the agenda of Viksit Bharat, changing the contours in the rural economy, emphasizing on elements like Awas Yojana or MSME dispensation, creating job opportunities. To me, these are crucial elements of place a more sustainable design of growth rather than
Right.
just cutting taxes, carte blanche, and incentivizing direct consumption, which can, to some extent, build some inflationary pressures. As you rightly said, RBI has been trying to navigate the inflation closer to its target, which will happen over the next 18 months or so. But having said so, it is important that a more sustainable design of growth and inflation balance is arrived at. Agriculture impetus
Right.
is one I look at as a positive. So overall, the theme that I would like to put in one word for this budget is a more distributive budget with fiscal consolidation as the underlying theme.
Yes. So that also means, Shubda, that the any rate cut potential, which was already, some way away, is going to further get pushed back.
We were of the view that the rate cut could come sometime in the quarter of October, December. Unfortunately, the food price inflation still remains very firm, and monsoon progress has not been equitable in terms of just spatial distribution. We still see a large number of regions in deficit, which, while as of now have not impacted the Kharif sowing. In fact, Kharif sowing has gotten better, but the progress of monsoon year after over the next 45 days will remain. Progress and performance will be very crucial to keep the food supplies, outlook in a positive zone. As of now, we are not raising the alarm bell significantly, but monsoon is one that we will have to keep watch. The reason I harp on monsoon is because in the overall inflation dynamics, core inflation remains well within range. While it may have bottomed out, it may see an upside, but not a dramatic flare up. We also see a range bound movement in the fuel price contribution to headline inflation. The concern continued to remain on agriculture and food, particularly perishables and so on. to which the government supply side policies, actions will go a long way. And RBI would then have headroom to cut rates. But in nutshell, if you ask me, where are the rates headed, and at what time, I would think October, December. We have stretched it from October to the October, December
Hmm.
quarter window, because Fed will also be watched, closely
Yes.
as to what they do in the September policy, whether they actually uh, effect a rate cut as the market is beginning to anticipate.
Right.
We need to look at Jackson Hole and other kind of commentaries. But overall, I think growth inflation balance from a macro perspective seems to be in a sweet spot.
Right. Suman, do you agree with that? Do you think that over the next few months is enough to bring the inflation sustainably to that 4% level, which is the RBI's target? Because Governor time and again has made it amply clear that it's not going to be before that he cuts rates.
Right. So yeah, I think there is an expectation and a valid expectation that food inflation will moderate. We have seen the monsoon progressing. I agree with Shubhada that there are certain distribution concerns on the monsoon. But if you look at the overall deficit numbers on rainfall, I think they are very modest. I think overall distribution, especially in South and Western India, has been pretty good. Still, there are some pockets where rainfall is still not adequate, and the numbers of sowing are very comforting. So I think there is a very significant possibility of food inflation moderating. But the question is, when will we see lower numbers? It may not happen so much in the second quarter, although yes, there is a base factor which will help in the second quarter. But by third quarter, possibly we are going to see the benefit of lower food inflation. So therefore, any action on rate cuts will have to wait. And probably, in my mind, I think there is a likelihood it may happen in the third quarter, but there is also a likelihood it might get postponed to the fourth quarter. So yeah, to mention, Avni, here is
Yeah.
you have to see what the government is doing to address the issue of food inflation, because we all know that it is not so much in the hands of RBI, but it has, the fiscal policies have to work towards that. So if you look at some of the measures, more longer term measures that the government has talked about, in this, number one, they have talked about higher yielding seeds, climate resistant varieties of crops that they're talking about, which can address the issue of supply. They're talking about being self-sufficient in pulses and oilseeds, giving more focus to it. In fact, the sowing on all this have increased substantially in the current year. Third, they're talking about improving the supply chain in vegetables. And we all know where vegetable inflation had gone in the last 1 or 2 months. So clearly, government is also taking some steps to address this structural issue of food inflation.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Shubda and Suman, for joining us and breaking that down for us.